Hello, people of the internet. I'm Nick from Our City Magic, and today I'm going to, you could say, copy a thing that Master Fox 722 does, and I'll leave his channel in the description below for you guys to check out. He does a thing called controversial opinions, where he takes, well, a controversial opinion and talks about it. Now, I will say this: if I do this as a series, which I want you guys to let me know in the comments below if you want this to be a series or not. These do not represent my own opinions. I just like the discussion that it brings up, and it actually makes us think about the game and why we play it, and, you know, how much bullshit we've put up with. So my first controversial opinion is that Pendulums reward players for being really bad at the game. Now, what I'm saying is that Pendulums as a mechanic are very low risk. That's a fact. You know, there's only like 2 or 3 cards that are going to wreck your day. Let's start with the obvious one. You know, Mr. Long Arm of the Law here. He banishes Pendulums. For those of you who didn't know, you know now. Chateau Chat, thank you for that. His channel will be in the description below. Probably a link to that video. And I'll send you a link to Master Fox's controversial opinions video where he talks about how Necro should have not been killed. Which some valid points are made there. Now, Long Arm of the Law, he banishes Pendulums, and he really stopped searches. Another way to stop the Pendulums are with floodgates in the form of Fragrance, a Spell-Shattering Arrow, Stygian Dirge to affect the level so they can't go into Xyz. But at the end of the day, if you do nothing to stop the Pendulums, your opponent can basically do whatever the hell they want, and they're not going to get wrecked for it because, as you know, if Pendulums are used for a Synchro Summon, they go to the extra deck. If they're tributed, they go to the extra deck. If they die, they go to the extra deck. Even when they're face down, which is kind of bullshit. So, let's begin with the first category that I call floaters of Pendulums, which is like Erendane the Absolver, Performance plus Fire, I guess Lizard Draw to an extent, where they're in the Pendulum Zone, and they reward you for being in the Pendulum Zone if they were to die from a thing like Wavering Eyes, which this card needs to get banned. I don't care what anyone fucking says. This card needs to go. I hate this card so much. I don't even play a Pendulum deck, and when my opponent just does this for 2, just to search a Luster, which I didn't put that on here because I'm an idiot, but if my opponent just does this for 2, and they Luster me, and they do it with a Plush Fire, and they instantly make Ignister and bounce Darklaw, I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't want to deal with this. So, way to go, me yawning in every video I do. And plus, they have benefits for when they're in the Pendulum Zone, which is really, really stupid. Because Erendane, you don't have to pay life points. So, free Solemn, free 7 tools, free Goblin out of the Frying Pan, but that card's terrible. But I'm just saying, she lets you just do anything for free, and if she were to die because your opponent has to kill her, since they want you to lose life points, this is a no TK format, you get to search a counter trap, and the rest go back into your deck. They don't go to the graveyard. They don't get banished. They go to your deck. Fuck you. Same with you, Plushfire. I'm glad you got banned in the OCG. We don't like you, alright? I hate Pepe. I just hate Pendulums. But let's go back to the point of the video about why Pendulums reward players for being bad. They float, which really that's a lot of decks, but Pendulums float. Secondly, it is really, really hard to kill these motherfuckers because they float. You need a Darklaw, or a Macrocosmos, or an Anti-Spell Fragrance to stop them from being played. Or a way to should not let them touch the extra deck. So, like, I actually saw a Sertalinite player siding Macrocosmos at the regional I was just at, so he could stop Pendulums from going to the extra deck so they would get banished. All of his Sertalinites would get banished, but he wouldn't care because he could just Trevor back to the macro and set the macro and force them to MST, which was a really smart idea, but he ended up going like 5, 2, and 2 on the day. He didn't really do that. Thirdly, Pendulums are their own archetype, which means you can basically play any Pendulum deck, and it doesn't matter how bad you are as a player, the deck is going to perform amazingly because that's just how Pendulums were designed. Let's talk about the Magicians for a second here. Konami could have been douchebags, and they could have printed these as supers in a set like Breakers of Shadow or Shining Victory, to where if people wanted them, they have to go either buy boxes or they have to spend $50 on a playset for that and $10 for this. But they made them commons in a structure deck. Same with Joker. They made Wisdom, Noble. They made these cards easily accessible. They didn't make them super expensive. They want people to play this deck, and that's why people have been quitting the game. I know a couple of people who quit the game because they don't want to deal with pendulums. The fact that, literally, I could go right now to a Walmart and spend $35, and I can build an Odd-Eyes Magician deck that could, top 64 regional, because that's just how the deck is. Look at Cleeford. Cleeford is a great example. They were one of the first pendulum decks. I think they were the first pendulum deck in the TCG other than, pendulum gadgets. But let's face it, that deck was terrible. But, I mean, 3 scout, 3 sacrifice, and you had towers, and I tore up that format with Gladiator Beast. But this really showed how pendulums are going to be in the TCG. It's a powerful mechanic. Do not misunderstand me. They are a very powerful mechanic. But at the end of the day, if you kill a pendulum, it goes to the extra, which means you can purposely send your pendulum into the extra deck for a suicide. Like, let's just say I have a Tribute Summon Carrier or something, and my opponent has a Dark Law. I can crash into the Dark Law and have it go to the extra deck, so the Dark Law will go to the graveyard and they can't get it back unless they summon it again. And, now I have a carrier in my extra ready to be pendulum summoned next turn. So, where the hell am I even going with this? Oh yeah, that's where I'm. Let's talk about the Performance Palace. This is probably going to be the best deck in the format, as much as I don't want to say that it is going to be. Pendulum Wizard, I absolutely hate you. Because that's another thing about pendulums, is a lot of these cards let you immediately set scales, which is the reason I was going to make this video. Pendulum scales are too easy to make, they're too easy to search, and again, Wavering Eyes is a really fucking stupid card. Ban the shit, but let's notice here. Wisdom Eye Magician. You can put 2 of these in your scales and boom. What?
I'm getting in the shower now.
Alright. Sorry about that, was my sister. But basically, you don't even need to have a full scale. You could have just 1, and if it dies, you'll probably get value, because again, it'll be like a Plush Fire, or it'll be a Wisdom Eye, or it'll be Arendane, or it could be one of these guys that draw you cards. And some of the monsters that search, like Joker and these guys, you can just put them in your scale for an inherent pendulum summon. Everyone forgets that Joker's an 8. So I was playing a UA pendulum deck. I put that and a Oath in my scale, and they're like, wait, what scale is Joker? 8? And then I just pendulum summoned 3, I pendulum summoned a Dunker, a Perfect Ace, and a Mighty Slugger, and I proceeded to OTK him from there. But, pendulums are inherently easy to forget about because everyone's playing them, and you decide to take a break and play Rogue, and you come back, it's like, oh, what the hell happened here? Another thing is that the fact that pendulums have to be dealt with in such a specific way means that you can be one of the worst players and have all your pendulums get banished, and you're still going to win. Because when your pendulums get banished, if they're destroyed, aka Plush Fire, Pendulum Wizard, Arendane, Eccentric if you're going to pop a back row, or Lizard Draw, they still check as monsters, so you can resolve their effects. Same with Wisdom Eye, Oath, and Noble Dragon, and the Cleef Forts, and Odd Eyes. It's just what is even if they get banished, which you really have to take forever to put them back in your graveyard with Burial or something, and then you have to summon Gusto Emerald to get them back. That's a lot of resources. But the fact that some people are doing that just so that the pendulums don't die is absurd. Which means you can make bad plays just so that you can clear your opponent's board. You go neg, they sometimes go plus, yet you're still ahead of them on card advantage because Pendulums, even if they get banished, you still get their effects, and your opponent's monsters most likely won't. So in order to wrap this video up really fast, the reason that Pendulums reward you for being bad plays is 1, they float, 2, you can't get rid of them, and 3, if you can't get rid of them, they still have effects because they float, and they check as monsters in whatever zone that they resolve in. The extract, the banish zone, the graveyard, whatever. However, if an effect was to shuffle them back into the deck, they wouldn't trigger. And also Xyz Pendulums, what the fuck were you thinking? But the reason I wanted to talk about this so much is because I hate Pendulums, I really do. And it's the fact that they're so searchable. Like, every non-Pendulum deck has to put in 12 cards in their side, or main floodgates, just so they can beat the Pendulum decks, because Pendulum players will make obviously bad plays that don't profit them, but they're still going to come out better because the Pendulums float, and most of the time, unless you're playing against, like, Burning Abyss or Gang Zing, those other monsters do not. Anyway, that's it for this controversial opinion. I know I kind of stuttered a bit throughout this entire video, but it's really hard to talk about Pendulums without bringing up something that I already said, because they're basic in design, but they're complex in terms of how do you beat them. You could beat them on a basic level, but when it comes down to just not having Pendulums be cards, you can't really do that. So it really just comes down to who's ready to side against Pendulums, and how are the Pendulums going to anti-side against your side. Because, hell no, is everyone going to spend $85 on fragrances, and no one is going to want to buy all that other stuff. Like, a lot of people are going to play, like, Arrow and Fairy Wind, and they're going to play other Pendulum stuff. Something as basic as, Twisters, and more MSTs, and Dust Tornadoes. People are doing that just so they can deal with Pendulums. And they just go to the extra deck, to where if your opponent has more than one scale, you're just feeding the fire, and you don't want to do that. But yeah, anyway, I'm Nick from City Magic. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your thoughts about Pendulums and why you think that they're either good or bad for the game, and do you think that they can reward players for being bad players? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.